Hello everyone and welcome to our another video where we'll discuss data types in Java. Now before we jump into a very special non-primitive string data type, let's do a refresher course and let's refresh our memory and think about what we saw before. We saw that in Java variables are also known as data types, right? Let's eliminate this. And in Java, there are two major categories for data types. Category 1, primitives. These are the foundational data types. We said there are 8 primitives. On the category of numeric primitives, we have byte, short, int, long. Second category of primitives are going to be floating primitives. These are going to be float and double. Third category was textual. There is only one primitive here, char. And fourth category was logical. And there is only one primitive here called Boolean. Simply put, these are our primitives. Again, remember the sizes of these, the reasoning behind these primitives, how you can use sizes of these, especially numeric primitives, to your benefit. Float and double are to store the numbers with decimal points. Textual primitive is for all characters out there. Logical is for true or false values. And we said the second major data type in Java is non-primitives. So everything that is not a primitive is non-primitive. Everything but the 8 primitives. Now, we said we're not going to dive too much into this discussion of non-primitives, but we will look at one very special non-primitive that is going to be, that you can confuse as one of the primitives, because we're going to use this a lot, and sometimes more than any other type of primitive. And it is called string. Okay? Now, before I dive into details of string, I want you to pay attention to one thing. When we described primitives, you saw how we always used lowercase letters, byte, short, int, L. You see B lowercase, S lowercase, I. The same applies to float, double, char, and Boolean. Whereas in string, we put S as a capital letter, as an uppercase letter. Now, this is going to be the first sign that this variable is not a primitive. We will look into this down the road, that this is a representation of a class. That's why it is starting with capital S. And we will just leave it right here. Strings are, simply put, one of the most common types of data in computers. Any language, any programming language you look into is going to have a concept of strings. Okay? Now, in Java, strings are nothing but a sequence of chars put together. Now, do you remember this statement? System out, print line, hello world. Now, do you remember we said that these quotation marks we have to use here, but they are not printed? If you want to print out the quotation mark, you need to use a escape sequence and add another, like this, add this escape sequence. Now, here is why we have to use quotation marks and we don't see them on the console. The reason is this hello world is a string. Okay, so characteristics of strings, always in double quotes. Anything you see in double quotes is a string, right? Now, one thing I forgot to mention, for chars, always in single quotes. Anything you see in a single quotes is a char. Okay, the reason why I didn't mention this is because we looked at ASCII table and we looked at the numbers of the decimal values of chars, and That's why we did not even need to mention single quotes. We will use this when we're going to be declaring and instantiating primitives. Okay, back to string. Strings are always in double quotes. Okay, string store texts, or let's do this, stores texts. So anything within the double quote. Okay, and as we said before, string is sequence of chars. We will see down the road that hello world for Java is nothing but H plus E plus, I mean, let me put it in single quotes, H plus E plus L, okay, I'm trying to make it organized, plus another L, plus O, oh, not zero, O, plus comma, within quotation. So you get the idea, plus space is also a character, plus, you get the idea, right? So for Java, string is nothing but a sequence of chars. When you say hello world, in the background, what happens is these are all primitives, right? H is a primitive char, E is a primitive char. If you take it further, H has a number, E has a number. If you take it even further, H is a bunch of zeros and ones, E is bunch of zeros and ones, the whole 9 yards, right? So all you need to know from the perspective of the string, they are sequence of chars, they are always in double quotes, and they store texts, anything within the double quotes. Okay? Now, so basically, this is all about strings. At this stage, we will look into it even further. We will have a separate section dedicated only for strings, string manipulations, and methods. It's very important to understand the concept of string in detail, and we'll get to it down the road. Thank you very much for your time. I hope this helps, and I will see you again.